not the CDL administrators, not the ATA, not the CBTA. We see the student truck crashes that do not make the news and the scattered rigs along the off-ramps operated by a new driver who has not been taught to park, back properly, manage their hours of service, logbook, or knows how to stick up for themselves against training carriers, pushing them to because they are an expendable, cheap labor source. Excuse me just a minute.
Well said.
In our weekly group, we have come in contact with student drivers who are put out on the highway with as little as 2 weeks driving experience. And they are running great even though they feel they are not prepared. There is no oversight on the turnover rate in the training carriers and the claims of the ATA of a critical driver shortage. As a veteran driver and a taxpayer, I feel if the FMCSA truly cared about safety, they would have a cap on how many students could be recruited by a training carrier per year. Government funding for entry-level driver training has become a welfare program for some big carriers that the ATA represents. From funds from MAP 21, Workforce Investment Act, dislocated worker training funds, and Pell Grants are funding the CDL school industry. They are not putting qualified drivers on the road. The evidence of this is the recruitment rate, the turnover rate, and the continued claims that there is a driver shortage. The CBTA would have us believe that these programs are putting people desperately for work into good-paying jobs. But many of these people who qualify for the government training funds will not be driving 1 year from the time the CDL school collected the training funds. This is a drain on our economy. It is theft from taxpayers who wrongly believe these funds are helping fill empty jobs. These are not good-paying jobs. They are jobs that require many hours of unpaid labor, and people are being misled to enter trucking because of all the funding benefits the CDL industry, school industry receives. This system is set up that someone with my qualified driving experience cannot train an entry-level driver, but a person who has just a few months of experience can train another student. This is not highway safety. Our group wishes to educate elected officials and the motoring public how government funds like MAP 21 are being misused at carriers who are recruiting between 90 and 200 entry-level drivers each week without accountability. I'm going to name names. Carriers like Werner, CR England, Covenant Transport, CRST Van Expedited, Swift, US Express, New Prime. These are just a few of the carriers who use students from those who sought training and compare just how many of these entry-level drivers are now out of the system. There should be a cap on how many students these carriers can recruit. There is indeed a shortage of qualified drivers, qualified trainers, because the quality of recruits the CDL schools are feeding to carriers who see these people as dollar signs and are willing to take the risk and put them on the road. Drivers who have no desire to train are pressured into taking on that task. This is highly dangerous and can become volatile, especially for females. I recommend that FMCSA look beyond the performance-based question and recognize who the stakeholders are in receiving a great deal of funding or entry-level driver training, but continue to have incredible turnover and are not producing qualified drivers.
When we spoke earlier today, you mentioned the risk that sometimes trainees face alone in a cab with a trainer. That might not always be a woman who's at risk for harassment. Is there some element of that we should take into account in preparing a rule, or just, again, from an awareness perspective, allow that to proceed? And not proceed, but not get into it, in other words.
Well, I think we really need to have some good quality back and forth.
On that issue?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to at least bring
Let's
the awareness.
Let's open up.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Definitely.
thank you. And will we get a copy of your statement?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.